Good afternoon. Thank you for the time I'm going to use to share a few experiences with you. My name is Harry Kramer. I was in the 547th. I saw this plane behind us go down. But before I get into that, I'd like to tell you how I got there. I came from a very Jewish family. Prior to Pearl Harbor, my family was very involved in what was going on in Europe. We received two Jewish newspapers every week. We also received the Washington Post and the Evening Star. So we were very tuned into what was going on in the world. When Pearl Harbor came along, I was at the University of Ben Franklin, and I immediately decided I had to be in the service. I enlisted 6 January 42, was sent to Fort Meade, Maryland, from there to Shepherd Field, Texas for basic training, and from there to Fort Logan, Denver, Colorado for clerical school. From Fort Logan, I was transferred to Patterson Field, Ohio for a stint in a supply squadron. At that time, I again requested flight training. I finally got my assignment for flight training and was shipped to Maxwell Field, Alabama for basic, and from there to Jackson, Mississippi for primary in that wonderful ship called the PT-17. I had trouble landing, and after almost graduating from there, I washed out. I was then sent to Selman Field, Monroe, Louisiana, navigation school. They didn't know what to do with us, so they put a whole gang of us in the guard squadron. I was fortunate. I didn't do guard duty. I was put in the day room, in the orderly room, and took care of the day roll and the payroll book. From there, I was transferred to a very special outfit, to an altitude training chamber. And I had some very good basic training there in oxygen equipment, Colonel Lovelace's new oxygen mask, which was just being distributed to the Air Force, to Air Corps, and I was able to get a lot of knowledge in oxygen equipment. However, that stint didn't last too long. I was then transferred to officers' personnel at Selman Field, and I thought, gee, I'm going to be here forever. So I decided to go home and do the thing. I went home and got married. I brought my wife down to Selman Field. We were there for a few months. Next thing you know, I was on a duty roster for overseas. I went overseas and landed at Hollandia, New Guinea. Which was a Air Force replacement center. From there, I was sent to the 5th Air Corps, 5th Air Force replacement center on Leyte. At Leyte, one of those big bugs there caught up with me, and I came down with dengue fever. And it was a pretty horrible thing. I was evacuated to a field hospital, and this was during rainy season. And for those of you who were in the Philippines during the rainy season, you know what that was like. The field hospital were GI cots with GI blankets on it, no sheets or anything like that. The doctor walked around in hip boots. The best treatment I could have gotten there was a spinal tap on a dirty GI blanket. It didn't help too much, so I was evacuated to the beach to a hospital ship. While on the beach, we were strafed, and I received some shrapnel in my foot. I finally got on the hospital ship and was taken back to Hollandia to a general hospital. At the general hospital, I was getting better, and one afternoon, around January the 10th, 45, I saw this big black thing come up out of the sky, came in over the water, across the beach, the hospital area, and behind the hospital area, there was a mountain called Mountain Cyclops. It was a P-61. He buzzed the hospital, and he climbed up the mountain, disappeared into cloud cover, and the mountain still continued on up, apparently circled around, came back. I know at my age I don't really remember, it was second or third time, and second or third time he didn't come back around. We found out that he apparently stalled out and pancaked in on the trees. For 2 or 3 days afterwards, I imagine 2 days, they had big searchlights tracing these mountain climbers up the mountain to the spot where the P-61 was. Then, a couple days later, I think there was a general officer in the area, and he needed a photo op. So they dragged some of us out for Purple Hearts in a parade area to present our Purple Hearts. And here was a truck that came in with these mountain climbers, their clothes in shreds, and they apparently had brought down the crew from the 61. I saw this and never realized anything after that. My wife and I had a hardware store in College Park, Maryland for 30 years. And we used to go to New York to buying shows. And on the way back, we used to stop here to see the progress made on the 61. And we remember back in the room over here, seeing those pieces being put together. And it wasn't until just a few years ago, when we were here, I heard a docent tell a group of people that this airplane went down in Hollandia. And it was then it struck me that, gee, I saw this plane go down. And it was really an awesome thought at the time. And I thought maybe perhaps I'd share that with you. There's one other thought. I didn't write that on my program that I'd like to share with you. And this is about one of the most respected people that I had privileged to meet while I was in the service. And it was a fellow by the name of Father Carroll. He was the 5th Fighter Command Chaplain. He was a Jesuit priest and just one of the finest people that I've ever met. Give you one little story about Father Carroll. We were at Mindoro, and there was minimum supplies. He had lost a lot of his chaplain supplies at that time, and a young Jewish Navy enlisted person came up and asked Father Carroll if he had a Hebrew prayer book. He had just gotten a TWX that one of his parents had passed, and he wanted to say prayers. Father Carroll said, no, I have no supplies, but wait 1 minute, let me check with Kramer. He usually has 2 of everything. So he did, and I happened to have another prayer book which I gave the young man, and Father Carroll said, this kid looks pretty beat. He said, why don't you get him a fresh t-shirt, get him some chow, and use my Jeep to take him back to the beach. And to me, he was just one of the most outstanding people that I met overseas. Thank you for your time.